take about half an hour. But for passengers and crew members aboard U.S. Airways Express Flight 5481, it ended in just seconds. CNN's David Mattingly is joining us now from the Charlotte Douglas International Airport in North Carolina with the latest. David?
Wolf, it was supposed to be a short half-hour flight, a quick commuter hop from Charlotte, North Carolina to Greenville, South Carolina. Everything seemed to be going fine until just after takeoff when the plane inexplicably veered to the left, then crashed at the hangar that you see behind me. We're going to zoom in just a little bit to give you a look at the corner of the hangar. You see that it's blackened and charred, that from the fireball as the plane crashed. One eyewitness at the time says there seemed to have been a problem with the plane's engine.
I was right at the end of the runway, and I looked up through my sunroof, and I saw him through my sunroof, and he was going straight up. It looked like the prop on the right side just completely stopped, and he rolled on his back, and it came straight down and hit nose first, and just a huge fireball as soon as it hit.
Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board are on the ground. They will be scrutinizing the 6-year-old Beech 1900 turboprop. This particular plane, according to the FAA records, had problems last year with a leaky fuel pump and landing gear that wouldn't retract. Those problems had been fixed. There was also an alert issued last year for mechanics to be on the lookout for a loose bolt that holds together the vertical stabilizer. That's part of the rear assembly of the plane. We don't know if this was a problem with this particular plane. Right now, hopes are high, however, for a quick recovery of both the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder.
We are working as we speak to move the wreckage to find what we think is the voice recorder. I just moments ago walked by. We have what we believe to be the flight data recorder.
And of course, the grim task at hand continues right now, Wolf, the recovery of the bodies, the identification of the people on board, and the notification of their families. Wolf, back to you.
David Mattingly is on the scene for us tonight in Charlotte, North Carolina. David, thanks very much. Our Miles O'Brien, who himself is a pilot, is over at the CNN Center in Atlanta and has a look at what passengers may have experienced during the final moments of Flight 5481. Miles is joining us now live. Miles?
Well, believe it or not, there aren't many possible emergencies in aviation that require quick action. Engine failure on takeoff, however, is one of them.
It was supposed to be a short commuter run from Charlotte's Douglas International Airport to Greenville, Spartanburg, only 75 miles away. The plane, a twin-engine turboprop Raytheon Beech 1900D, didn't have an empty seat. A flight crew of 2 and 19 passengers aboard. Controllers cleared the plane for takeoff on runway 18 right, seen here in recent satellite pictures. It's a 10,000-foot north-south ribbon of runway, plenty of room for the 1900D. Typically, such a plane would roll less than 4,000 feet before taking flight. But just as it took off on this morning, the plane veered sharply to the left and, according to witnesses, rolled upside down, then dove into the ground near a maintenance hangar. Investigators will look very closely at the airplane's left, or number 1 engine. If it failed just as the plane became airborne, the flight crew would have had to act very quickly and very precisely to keep the plane from doing just what it did. They are supposed to step hard on the rudder pedals to counteract the uneven thrust. Then, according to the aircraft checklist, keep the operating engine at full takeoff power while ensuring the blades on the bad engine are feathered or edge on to the airstream. Otherwise, the prop would create so much drag, the plane would be impossible to control.
Now, investigators will learn an awful lot, Wolf, just by looking at the wreckage. They can determine if that propeller on that left engine was spinning. They can also determine the angle of the blades, and they can also try to figure out if there was an engine failure, if it was a catastrophic engine failure, which might have spewed out some sort of parts which might have damaged that wing, thus making it all the more difficult for the flight crew to control that aircraft. Wolf?
Miles, what kind of safety record does this Beech 1900 turboprop have?
Well, we did a little web search on the 1900, and it turns out there are about 17 crashes total since it first came out in 1982. This was the 13th crash involving fatalities, and that's worldwide. It's a pretty good safety record when you consider the number of cycles, as they say, the number of flights that have been flown. Beechcraft and Raytheon make a very hardy aircraft. This aircraft has its lineage in the so-called King Air, You may recall the King Air from back in October when Senator Paul Wellstone died in a King Air. It is a plane that has a long history, has very reliable power plants, and is built well beyond the minimums, if you will.
Miles O'Brien, who always helps us understand these plane crashes. Thanks very much, Miles, for that information. And David Isla was at the Charlotte airport when Flight 5481 crashed, and he got some pictures of that horrible accident. He's joining us now live from Charlotte. David, thanks for joining us. Walk us through where you were, what you saw, what happened.
Well, when I walked out there, I just saw the fire crews and everything run around. I saw the flames. First I saw the ball of fire, and that's when I jumped in my truck and went down there to see if I could help out. And then I just saw the flames and the firefighters trying to put out some of the wreckage and frantically trying to get that fire out.
Then you started rolling some videotape. You had a video camera with you, and tell us what happened and what you saw then.
Oh, I have my video camera. I just I saw fire in the there's a gullyway there. I saw fire there, and I saw fire in the parking lot and they were trying to squirt down the cars to make sure theirs weren't going to catch on fire. And then I saw over there the wreckage. Well, at least it looked, I couldn't see with the smoke. I couldn't see all the wreckage, but I did see a piece of the wreckage there that they were frantically trying to put out.
And we're looking at some of that videotape that you shot. You had the presence of mind to go ahead and get your video camera and take these pictures. How long did it take for those first responders, the firefighters and everyone else, to get to the scene?
Well, when I got there, they had already been there. I was told that they were there within 2 minutes, and but there were continuously coming more people, more firefighters and everything.
You have a background, and what's your background, your personal background, and give us some, as a result of that, some experience that you've had in seeing these kinds of horrible disasters.
Well, my background is aircraft, work on aircraft, clean aircraft. Aircraft Appearance is the company that I work for, and cleaning aircraft, and also ground handling and cargo. That's my background with the aircraft.
But you'd never seen anything like this before, have you?
No, sir, I sure haven't. No, that was it was just a horrible sight to look at.
David Isla, he's at the Charlotte airport. Thanks very much for your videotape. Thanks for joining us to give us some of your eyewitness account of the aftermath of what happened after this plane went down. Michael Goldfarb is a former chief of staff for the Federal Aviation Administration. He's joining me here live in Washington. What's your initial reading on what may have happened here, Michael?
Well, Wolf, the speculation normally turns out not to be ultimately what caused the crash, and I think everything's on the table. I understand the FBI has initially ruled out terrorism, but everything else is on the table.
They say there's no signs of any foul play or
Miles
anything
is
like
right in his report. I mean, obviously engine failure at that critical stage of a flight would be catastrophic in terms of recovery for any experienced crew. If there's good news in a tragedy, the only good news here for the investigation would be that, in fact, the flight data recorder probably is a new one. The plane's only 6 years old. And if they get the cockpit voice recorder, that could be very telling, given that there was an emergency call made as well to the air traffic controllers at the tower.
They say the weather was good. It was clear. There was a lot of visibility. It was a little windy, but nothing unusual for these planes to be able to take off on.
These planes are really the workhorse. The planes that fly in the commuter fleet, and there's been concern, are the pilots qualified, to fly these planes? You bet they are. I mean, they fly so many cycles, so many takeoff and landings very safely in the worst kinds of weather and conditions. So it's a rugged aircraft. There's a service history on it. No airworthiness directives that would indicate systemic failure of the airframe or its subsystems. So it's baffling. Once again, a small area of impact, 100 feet or 100 yards. The investigators will break into teams and look very extensively at engine systems, look at air traffic control, communications, look at...
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of our viewers, they take the big airliners. They don't mind flying in the big jets. But these little commuter planes, they get nervous.
Yeah.
They get very nervous. Should they be as nervous as they apparently are? What is the track record of the smaller planes, for example, versus the big ones?
Well, I mean, I'm nervous. Everyone's nervous when you're in weather at 10,000 feet in a small plane because, like a small boat, you feel the impact of of the currents on you. But these planes are remarkably resilient. They have enormous amounts of safety built into them. Statistically, there's one level of safety that the government has enforced with the small planes as well as the large ones. Statistically, they have more accidents simply because they have more takeoff and landings, the most critical parts of flight. But outside of that, they're entirely safe to be on. In fact, the pilots handle the aircraft more than the 747 pilots who have so much automation in that cockpit, Wolf, that they can basically not even have to handle the controls.
So realistically speaking, our viewers should not necessarily be more nervous, even though they are.
Well, and we also, the speculation, we have the sniper case white van scenario here, where early speculation just takes precious resources away from what ultimately might become the cause of this crash. And I know it's tempting when you have a tragedy like this to find a quick cause, because so many people fly every day. The board was on top of this, and it's on the ground. It's not in the ocean. No salvage, no rescue.
It usually takes 6 months or so to find out what really happened. Right. Michael Goldfarb, we often call on you during these times of aviation disasters. Thanks very much for coming in. As we mentioned at the top of this broadcast, there's also been a crash in Turkey. A Turkish Airlines flight from Istanbul crashed as it was landing at an airport in southeastern Turkey, and more than 70 people are dead. Seen as Jane Araf is standing by in Istanbul. Jane, first of all, what do we know about survivors?
Well, actually, some pretty dramatic accounts, Wolf. Only 5 survivors out of a total of 80 passengers and crew, but one of them was very small, a 2-year-old girl named Helen, who has apparently just come out of surgery, we're told, at hospital in Diyarbakir, where the crash happened, and is in intensive care. A very lucky little girl. Another one, an amazing story, a woman who was in the plane when it split apart, who said she was thrown from the plane onto a bale of hay at the airport. She has survived to tell the tale. The others, of course, weren't so lucky. Turkey's transport minister said 75 people believed to have died in that crash. Some of them foreigners. We're not sure yet from where. He actually announced that most of them had burned to death after the plane broke apart. The reason, officials say, for the crash appears to be very heavy fog at the airport, one of the main airports in southeast Turkey. Wolf?
What kind of plane was it? As you answer that question, Jane, we're looking at the first pictures we're now getting in from that airport, the scene of that horrible crash. What kind of aircraft was involved?
Well, this was a regular flight from Istanbul to Diyarbakir. There are 2 flights a day most days. It's a major center. It's one of the biggest cities with a majority Kurdish population in the region, and it was, by all accounts, a normal flight. That airport, however, according to aviation sources, does not have the kind of guidance system that would have allowed pilots to land more easily in heavy fog. It is mostly a military airport. Now, those pictures that you're seeing, obviously relatives and friends who are learning the news, seeing the passenger manifest, some of them collapsing in grief. We're seeing similar scenes in Istanbul. Most of the people on that flight would have been from Diyarbakir or living in Istanbul going home, or vice versa. So certainly relatives in shock after learning the news of that horrific crash. Wolf?
Jane Araf on the scene for us. Another plane crash today in Turkey. Thanks, Jane, for that report. When we come back, a white supremacist behind bars. Matt Hale busted for allegedly trying to kill a federal judge. The latest on his arrest. Plus, an heir to the Max Factor fortune accused of drugging, raping, and videotaping women. Now he's a fugitive on the run from the law. The latest on this very bizarre case. And alcohol and medicine. It apparently protects men from heart attacks. But should doctors start prescribing it? That debate still to come. But first, a look at our news quiz. What state has the highest per capita consumption of alcohol? Nevada, California, New Hampshire, Florida. The answer coming up.
Where are the cars we were promised? The dream cars, the problem-solving cars. Where are the cars that are more than just cars? They're closer than you think. Cars with voice recognition. Cars with intelligent cruise control. And a class-leading 340 horsepower engine. The Q45. From Infiniti.
Tough heartburn slowing you down? Try Extra Strength Mylanta. Cooling relief that speeds right to where you need it. Nothing's faster. Extra Strength Mylanta. Soothing at the speed of life.
CNN Tonight, he was willing to help prove a baby was cloned. Hear why he says it could all be just a hoax. Dr. Michael Gillen joins Connie, CNN Tonight, 8 Eastern.
Nothing improves the beauty of your home or increases its value like new doors. And no one in the Wiregrass specializes in doors like Ansley's Building Materials. Ansley's is your door source for any architectural style or taste. From simple designs to the elegant, from beautiful wood to handsome metal. Ansley's can custom build doors to your specifications for any part of your home, inside or out. And if you're building a new home, start with Ansley's first. Give your home an elegant new look with quality doors from Ansley's Building Materials. Zenith Road, where we're building Dothan one home at a time. Selecting an engagement ring or wedding set is an exciting time, and the professionals at Watson Jewelers in Mariana can help you choose the perfect set. At Watson Jewelers, you'll find a dazzling selection of the most popular styles, including all white gold, all yellow gold, platinum, and a variety of two-tone sets. Each set captures the heart as well as the eye. Many are accented with princess and trilliant cut diamonds. Before you decide on your wedding set, come by Watson Jewelers and check out their sparkling selection, downtown Mariana.
This is CNN.
The leader of a white